your blood. I'm covered by your blood. Your precious blood. Your holy blood.
Exodus chapter 20. And God spoke all these words: I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall have no other gods before me. Welcome, my fellow Christian brothers and sisters. Today we are going to discuss covenant relationship, biblical covenant relationship, that is. In a time where multiculturalism is prevalent, religious tolerance, as they may say, or religious freedom in the 21st century world includes many ideas, many concepts, many notions. So it becomes important to differentiate or make it clear the unique relationship between the God of Abraham and his people. Covenant relationship, biblical covenant relationship, that is covenant relationship between God and his people. Where there is a covenant relationship between God and his people, the Lord decides all. The Lord decides all. This is not a relationship where both parties decide on the dynamics, the rules to the relationship. In a covenant, that is a biblical covenant relationship between God and his people, the Lord decides all. Remember, from the beginning, God created humans into his image, in his image and likeness. And he gave Adam, you can look at Genesis chapter 1, where God created male and female, Genesis 1, verse 26 through to 27, where God created humans in his image and likeness. Chapter 2 give a little more detail of how God formed a man from the ground. Ish, that is, from the ground. Adam, to be read from the ground. God formed human from the ground and breathed into his nostril the breath of life. There is no life. There is no plant life, animal life, human life, without the initiative, the power, the ability of the living God. He created what he desired. And if you notice in Genesis chapter 1, repeatedly, when God created, you hear the words, and the Lord saw that it was good. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 3, and God said, let there be light. And there was light. Verse 4, God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God saw that the light was good. And you go down, each time the Lord created some component or element to his universe. the Lord saw that it was good. When he created a life or formed a life, God saw that it was good. So the creation of the Lord is satisfactory, pleasing to the Lord. Now, in Genesis chapter 1, and if you go down to verse 27, after God declared that he's going to make man in his image and likeness, in verse 27, so God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. This is a relationship where God is instructing the human of what he should do, his responsibilities, his purpose of being on the earth, his purpose for being created. Rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky and over every living creature that moves on the ground. So God instructed them. If you go to Genesis chapter 2, when God gave instructions to Adam and Eve regarding the prohibition, if you will, the prohibition, when God said in Genesis chapter 2, verse 16, and the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden. Here comes the prohibition. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat from it, you will certainly die. God established what Adam and Eve could do or should do and what they should not do in a covenant relationship with God. Starting here in Genesis, God decides everything because he started everything. The Lord God himself said it. Let us make man in our image and likeness. How did it start? It started by saying in Genesis chapter 1, it says that in the beginning, Genesis chapter 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. God is a creator, and it gives an account of how God created the process of creation. One by one, God created different phenomenon or sectors to his universe. Eventually, he created life, animal life, plant life, human life. And he gave the animals the power to create or procreate after their kind, be fruitful. God gave them inbuilt intelligence to create, to live, to be. The plant life, the animal life. But the human being was a greater and more sophisticated creature. This one was in the very image and likeness of God. So in speaking of covenant relationship, here the precedent is clear. I created you in my image and likeness. You only exist. You only exist. You only exist, Adam and Eve, because I created you. And I know the purpose for which I created you. Subdue the earth. Rule over it. It says here in verse 28. You are the ruler of the earth. And you can eat from all the trees except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. God decides all. In biblical covenant relationship between humans and God, the Lord God decides all. Now we return to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20, God was about to address his people. And it says, and the Lord spoke all these words, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other God. You shall have no other gods before me. God decides everything. So now we want to look at the covenant relationship between God and his people, and to establish some fundamental truths that seem to elude the Christian community of faith today. We say things, we do things, and we seem to be delusional or errant quite often in regarding what we should do and what the Lord expects of us. It becomes important to return to the Holy Bible and look at some of these principles that are there in scriptures for us to see. So the covenant relationship between God and his people. First, the Lord decides all. The Lord decides all. The creator of all things gets to decide what he does, what he expects from his creation. 3 areas I like to discuss that you can see in succession with Israel and the church eventually in the time of Jesus. 3 areas. The name of the Lord, holiness, and the commands of the Lord. So we will look at the name of the Lord, the nature or the holy character of the Lord, and the words of the Lord, or the commands of the Lord. The name of the Lord, the holy nature of the Lord, the commands or commandments of the Lord, and how these are relevant or pivotal for the relationship between the Lord and his people. There's no such thing as a relationship with God where there's not the applicable or the application of the name of God between God and his people. There's no such thing as a relationship with God where there is not holiness. There's no such thing as a relationship with the Lord where the people of God are not required to live by the instructions of the Lord. So the people of God in a covenant relationship with the Lord, there is the invoking of the name of the Lord. There is the call to be holy. And there is the given commandments of the Lord by which the people should live. So let us look at these 3 elements to the covenant relationship between God